in full transparency, this is my cousin, Trey, if the last name doesn't give it away. It's a great last name,
I
Lockerbie.
think so. We think so.
Proud to have you though. And I want you to first talk about what kombucha is, because this is something that has grown in popularity. But I think a lot of people are probably a little intimidated by it when they see it in the grocery store.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny name, right? And it's an ancient drink. It's been around forever. Supposedly, Genghis Khan drank fermented tea before battle, right? He called it the tea of immortality. And the reason is, well, first of all, it's tea, and we know why tea is good for you. It's full of polyphenols and antioxidants and all these amazing benefits just on its own, right? So then you take the tea and you actually ferment it, which is just the breaking down of sugar. So you imagine you have a sweet tea, and then you add this culture to it that actually eats the sugar and creates all these beneficial acids and more of these amazing probiotics itself.
What is that fermentation process? Because that in and of itself, I think is what, I mean, I want to give people a background on how this all got started, but talk to me a little bit about that fermentation process.
Sure thing. Yeah. So basically, anything fermented starts with sugar. That's the definition of fermentation, the breaking down of sugar. So basically, what we do is we brew a sweet tea. We add this culture. It's called a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. Fancy way to say probiotics. Important to remember that you have 100 trillion probiotics in your microbiome already. So imagine you have the state park, right? And then you have to keep that state park biotic relationship or in a healthy balance. So basically, if one plant starts to take over the environment, you have to rebalance it somehow. So
Right.
similar in your microbiome, you're introducing new probiotics to your microbiome when you drink kombucha, and that helps rebalance your microbiome, which helps boost your immunity and decrease inflammation.
And if the audience can't tell, you are the professional and the expert on kombucha. And this goes way back. I think your story is so cool, how you got your start, very grassroots, very in the kitchen. You are the LA hippie, as our family likes to call you, and you started brewing kombucha in your own kitchen.
Yeah, I'm kind of a stereotypical Los Angeles, hippie, I guess. But this is our product, Better Booch kombucha. It's delicious kombucha tea. And the ironic thing is, I didn't like kombucha the first time I tried it because a lot of kombucha out there is way too acidic. It's way too kind of offensive in a lot of ways, just on its taste. But
Mm-hmm.
kombucha was not ever meant to be like that. It's actually supposed to be a fermented tea. And it got into all these issues when people started adding juice to it. And when you add juice to it, that actually over ferments because it's adding more sugar to the product, and it creates
Mm-hmm.
a more acidic product. And so people kind of got either confused by why they drink it, or they just were turned off by it. And I was like that myself. And then I started brewing it at home and realized, oh, actually, like, for example, I love peach tea. So Morning Glory here is the first product we ever brewed, and it's a peach tea kombucha. And it's way less acidic because we don't add juice. And so it was the light bulb really went off to say, oh, everyone should drink this because it's better than a soda in every single way. And
Right.
and it actually is delicious if you do it right.
It is delicious. Do you have a fit? You just, I know you like the peach, but is this like a kids at this point? You can't pick your favorite, or do you have a favorite kombucha?
I cycle through them, but Morning Glory, Ginger Boost, those are our two top sellers. I'm not surprised. Those are the ones I always gravitate back towards.
Okay. So this grew from, again, I want to go back to this. This grew from you were making this in your kitchen, then you were selling it at farmers markets in LA, and it grew from there. Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I was the kombucha guy, right? So at one point, my wife and I were driving around town in this minivan we bought to deliver hundreds of cases of kombucha to all these coffee shops around LA. And we didn't do it we really just did it because we believed in the product. I actually personally benefited from the change I saw from drinking it instead of coffee, for example, in the morning. And I just became this huge advocate for it. So we would just go around town delivering. We started in coffee shops, and I like to say that all the snobbiest coffee shops around LA all adopted Better Booch, which I'm really proud about because they know good products and good beverages. And so that's how we grew. We had about 100 stores before we got our first major retailer. And then it
Mhm.
just sort of snowballed from there. Now we're nationwide in a lot of major retailers, like, for example, where you are, we're in Winn-Dixie, we're in Earth Fare, we're in a few others, and
Target.
Target, we're in Sprouts nationwide and a bunch of the other retailers as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a great thing to try. You said that you notice the benefits, and I'm sure at this point you drink it so often, you're surrounded by it. So you probably don't know necessarily the difference. I doubt you go a day without drinking it. But what kind of benefits did you experience from it when you started regularly drinking kombucha?
Yeah. So, for example, I was a touring musician before we started doing this, and I would get sick all the time because you're constantly traveling, you're constantly exposed to new environments, new foods, new, germs, whatever you have it, and you get sick a lot when you travel. I actually started drinking kombucha as a means of just convenient health while on the road, and I saw my immune health just get way better and getting less sick way often. And then when you're also on the road, you're consuming a lot of fast foods a lot, or just foods
Yeah.
that are just highly processed. So you'd feel inflamed, right? And so that's one of the major benefits of kombucha as well, is when you drink it, it actually decreases inflammation in the body. So I actually saw that as well. Just felt less bloated, felt healthier, felt lighter. And that's when I really started to say, like, wow, there might be something to this thing.
Something to it. Now, you said you swapped it for your morning coffee. So is that the best time to drink it, or is there a better time of day to have kombucha?
Well, look, I'll say yes, I did, but I also love coffee. I love the ritual of it. If I do, sometimes I drink decaf nowadays, but just because I love the taste.
Yeah.
So I love the ritual of coffee. So what I do is I usually have one at lunchtime. That's my sort of midday. I usually drink 2 a day. One is I grab one off the line that we're producing that day, just as a quality control.
Quality control, yeah.
Exactly, sure. And then I have one for lunch. But it can work as a mocktail or a cocktail in the evenings. You can pour it in a wine glass. You can substitute alcohol for it as well as coffee. I mean, it's such a versatile drink, and that's the idea. Is we want to make it as easy as possible to incorporate into your diet, so you don't feel like you're sacrificing anything. You just feel like you're trading something off for something better.
Does it matter if you're drinking it on an empty stomach versus after, like you said, at lunch? There's no benefit or con to it?
I think you just incorporate it anytime. I mean, the point is, especially with Better Booch, is we're not making it prescriptive or making using it as a sort of like a medicine, but we do think food is medicine, and just incorporating it into you. The other idea is we wanted to make it something you crave and something delicious enough that you just want to have. And I bet that you'll find that if you start drinking Better Booch, you actually do start to crave it because your body just starts to feel better. So for example, serotonin starts in your gut, actually, the happy chemical that in your brain. And so when your gut is happy, your brain is happy. So we're finding all these connections between the gut and the brain. And I think that might be part of the reason why when you drink kombucha, you start to feel better and you might want to drink more of it.
Now, what are the biggest questions you get from customers or from people about the product or about kombucha in general?
You've already listed a few of them. When should I drink it? How much should I drink it? Can you drink too much of it? And the idea is, no, you can't drink too much of it. This can this is our most common product. It's 16 ounces. It's technically 2 servings. Usually fluid ounces are 8 ounces. So this is basically 2 servings. I will say that there was an amazing Stanford study that just came out to show the benefits of probiotics versus prebiotics, for example. And they said that the more you consumed, the more benefit you saw. So probably not surprising, but they had people in the study starting with 6 servings a day of any kind of fermented food, including kombucha. And I think on average, people scaled it back to around 4, but that would be, 2 Better Booches in one day. So not hard to do.
And most Americans aren't getting enough fiber in their diet anyway. So this is a good additive. The other thing that I thought too with this is, you're a business guy. There's a lot of marketing that comes into play here as well. And so many of us probably are making better choices when we go to the grocery store, we go to a health food store. There's probably better items on the shelves, but you still have to look at the ingredients. So you still have to know what's in the products, because just because it's marketed as a health food item doesn't mean that it's, consisting of everything that you should consume. Mainly added sugars. Some of these things are chock full of sugar. So what would you say people need to, especially you peruse the aisles for any kind of kombucha or any kind of these health sodas in line? What should we be looking for?
Yeah, I think one thing to really look for is if they use juice to flavor it or not, because juice is added sugar. And what's weird about the FDA or the way the law is written right now is they don't actually consider juice to be added sugar, even though it is, right? Because sugar kind of is inherently in juice already. So it's not that there's a difference between that and adding cane sugar in their eyes for now. But what I would say is when you look at the label, it might be deceiving if people are using juice that might have a lot more sugar than they're claiming.
Okay. And also serving size, like you said, that can that you have there it's considered 2 servings.
Yeah, and again, funny in the laws of FDA, because we can't reseal it, it's considered a single serving technically on the label. But 8 ounces, typically, if you look at something in a glass bottle, for example, that would be 2 servings. So 8 ounces is roughly in the eyes of the FDA, usually a serving size for liquids.
Perfect. Lastly, just because this is, I think, for people who are just getting their start, you like peach tea, so you went with the peach kombucha. If somebody is a novice, maybe they've never tried it before, where do you start to not get turned off? Because like you said, I think there are some that have more of that acidic, earthy flavor that you take one sip and you're like, this is not for me. So how do you kind of wet your palate and ease into it?
I mean, I think that Morning Glory is a great place to start personally. I'm probably just talking my book here, but I really think that this is the most approachable kombucha on the market.
It's
and
so
I think
good.
that if you can't find Better Booch, look for something that, already fits into what you are typically used to consuming on a flavor basis. I find that ginger is a very common flavor in kombucha. I think it's personally because they're trying to cover up, maybe off flavors from the fermentation, and ginger does that in a really good way. But I also just happen to love ginger as a flavor. So,
Yeah,
our
I do
ginger
too.
boost, for example, is probably like a really light ginger ale, and it's kind of a supplement or something like that. That's kind of the flavor profile of how I describe it.
And you have a seasonal flavor too, right? While I have
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Every quarter we do a seasonal flavor. Our latest one is called Mango Delight, which is just what it sounds like. It's got mango and pineapple and all these amazing tropical flavors in it. And it's one of maybe our best flavors I think we've ever made.
I'll link it, but tell people how they can check you out, where they can find you.
Yes. So like we mentioned in the retailers before, you can go to those, or you can go to betterbooch.com. You can order it right there, or even on Amazon and have it straight to your door in a couple of days, already on ice. Oh, that's a good thing to also remember. If something doesn't need to stay cold, or it doesn't stay refrigerated on the label, probably not real kombucha. We didn't get into all
Ooh,
that, but there's a lot of engineered kombucha out there that's not quite what it says it is. So if it's cold, that's how you know it's real.
good pro tip at the end there. All right. Thanks, Trey. Appreciate it.
Thank
Proud of
you,
you.
Katie. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.